Hello, David Monteith again. Just wanted to talk some more about race and implicit bias and privilege. Before I get into it, there's a few things I want to address. Number one, yesterday I recommended a book by Robin Walker called When We Ruled. Now, I've just come to my attention that now it's quite expensive to get, but the author luckily wanted to condense and simplify his book in order to make it more accessible than the 700-page tome that it is. And he's written a book called Early African History, Start Here, by the same author, Robin Walker, and much more affordable and much more accessible. Second, a friend of mine, thanks to Jamie Bunn for pointing that out to me. A friend of mine from America said that he thinks that the situation in America is worse. I said, it's the best it's ever been because a certain leader has made it more acceptable for racists and bigots to have their say. But my thought is this: if they are always there anyway, it doesn't matter how loud or quiet they are, at some point it's gonna come out. It's gonna infect the nation. Little bit by little, or in a big explosion, doesn't matter. It will happen. So it doesn't really matter if they're quiet or loud. Thirdly, quite a few people thanked me for expressing my thoughts quite lucidly, and it was great to listen to somebody who wasn't angry. Here's my secret: I'm always angry. I may not be shouting like John Boyega, but don't mistake that for a lack of passion. I'm always angry. Don't think this smile is hiding a passive nature, because when it comes to race, I vacillate between pride and anger and weariness on a constant cycle. And I've been on that cycle since I was 8. So make of that what you will. Anyway, I'm continuing on the journey to answer the question, what can I do? What can you do? So I know yesterday I said that it's important to look at stories beyond slavery. But I do want to talk about my great-great-great-grandfather. That's 3 greats. He was an Igbo, and he was taken from what is now known as Nigeria at the age of 10 to Jamaica, big up, where he was separated from everything he knew, everyone he knew, forced to stop speaking his language. He had his name changed from Anyaso to Archibald, and he was even given a surname of his Scottish buyer, Monteith. So I just want you to take a moment to think about that. Every time you have reason to call my name, if you're someone out there who's ever said my full name, you're using a slave name. You are using a name that was given to denote ownership to someone else. I'll give you a moment. Is that sunk in? Good. Let's talk about dehumanization for a moment. Now, one of the arguments about the Atlantic slave trade, people go, well, slavery's always existed. It ain't news. We know that. But, and I'm talking in broad strokes here, slavery served 2 purposes. One was financial. It was debt repayment. 2, it was just what you did to people you conquered. Now, model number 1, debt repayment, you didn't lose your name or your identity. In fact, it's been shown that once your debt was repaid, you could actually marry into the family that you were a slave to. You could still become someone of standing within the community. You could become a chief. You could become whatever. You were not dehumanized. You did not lose who you are. Now, to be fair, any such system can be open to abuse, but that's not the base that it started from. 2, conquering people. Now, that has always been a fear of other. And while colour has always been an issue, it wasn't until the Atlantic slave trade that colour and race became a governing factor in slavery. And I was thinking about Cleopatra. Now, while controversy exists about her colour, there are ancient historians that refer to her dark colour. And commentators of the day that hold her relationship with the Roman Mark Antony as the reason things started to fall apart. Regardless of the political intrigue of the day, they found a way to blame the dark woman, Meghan Markle. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Sorry, just had a little tickle in my throat there. It's out now. Had to get that out. So, while attitudes to others has always been a dividing factor, it wasn't until America, England and other European nations got into wholesale slavery that race, and by race I mean colour, became the overriding motivation for slavery. And everything got in on the act. Religion claimed it was God's natural order. Science claimed it was nature's natural order. And economics, well, that provided the fuel to justify the whole thing. So, my great-great-grandfather, he was enslaved, and he remained enslaved for 38 years until he bought his freedom for £50. Now, let me put that in context. As a free man, as a working free man, he was earning £11 a year. Now, he could have waited 3 years and been freed when the abolition of slavery took hold, but freedom was too valuable to wait. I stand on the shoulders of a great man. And here's the thing. He wasn't a slave. That's not an identity. That is something that is done to you. That is something that was done to him. He was a man that was enslaved. And here's what you can do today. Reframe the whole issue of how you refer to people in your mind. Change your language, and you start to change your unconscious perception of them from chattel to humans. Change your language, and you change your unconscious perception of slavery being just a historical phenomenon to something that someone purposefully and without regard did to someone else. Now, despite previous iterations, this version of slavery perfected the art of dehumanizing its subjects. Do not continue that work. They were not slaves, they were the enslaved. Give them back their humanity. In doing its dehumanizing work, the systemic nature of modern day racism and subconscious attitudes to race are set in stone. That means it's become ingrained in everything we do, in our system of wealth accumulation, education, our civil structures. Institutional racism means that true equality, freedom from the subconscious mindset that results in racism is difficult because we are grounded in, we are working in and building on foundations set in place that brought Europe most of its wealth and that made it great. Implicit bias means that decisions that you make every day are based on ideals you don't even realise are shaping your thinking. Can you not see how dangerous that is? What can you do, you ask? For now, all I ask is that you let that sink in. That we are mired in foundations which are biased against certain populations. That's what we're working to undo. Rebuild the system from the ground up. Here's my book recommendation for today. Learn more about my ancestor, Archibald Monteith, Igbo, Jamaican, Moravian. It's by Maureen Warner Lewis. You can get it on Amazon. I'd prefer you got it on Hive because Amazon, evil corporation. But there you go. So, again, thanks for listening.